The Princes in the Tower. When two boys vanished into history tonight, we're talking about something darker than battle or plague. We're talking about two children who walked into a tower and never walked out. We're talking about the summer of 1483, when a 12-year-old boy became King of England for exactly 86 days, before his uncle decided crowns look better on adults. This isn't a story about war or glory. It's about two brothers, locked in a room, watching through barred windows as the world forgot they existed. It's about the slowest, quietest murder in English history. And it's about a mystery that 540 years later, we still can't solve. So dim the lights, get comfortable, and let's talk about the summer two princes disappeared. About power that eats its own children. About a tower that became a tomb. And about the moment you realize nobody's coming to save you. The boy who should have been king. April 9th, 1483. Edward IV, King of England, dies suddenly at age 40. Probably a stroke. Maybe poison? We'll never know. What we do know is that his 12-year-old son, also named Edward, just became the most powerful person in England. Except he's 12. He's a child, and in medieval England, a child king is blood in the water, and every shark in the kingdom can smell it. Young Edward is at Ludlow Castle when messengers arrive with the news. Your father is dead. You are king. Come to London immediately for your coronation. The boy probably felt excitement, terror, grief, all at once. He'd been raised for this moment. Tutored in Latin, trained in combat, taught how to rule. But he'd also expected more time. His father was only 40. Kings don't just die, but they do. And now Edward V, a child who still played with toy soldiers and complained about his Latin homework, owned England. The journey to London should have been triumphant. The new king, traveling with his uncle Anthony Woodville, Earl Rivers, his half-brother Richard Grey, and a modest escort of about 2,000 men. Flags flying, people cheering, a coronation waiting. But there was a problem. Several problems, actually. First, Edward's mother, Elizabeth Woodville, was from a family everybody hated. The Woodvilles were seen as upstart social climbers who'd gotten too much power under Edward IV. The nobles despised them. Second, Edward's uncle, Richard, Duke of Gloucester, was not invited to escort the boy to London. Richard had been Edward IV's most loyal brother, a battle-tested warrior, the protector of the realm. And he'd just been snubbed. Third, and this is important, England had just survived 30 years of civil war. The Wars of the Roses. York versus Lancaster. Brother killing brother. Cousin murdering cousin. A child king was dangerous. A child king controlled by the Woodvilles was unacceptable. So Richard made a move. On April 30th, at Stony Stratford, Richard intercepted young Edward's party. It was smooth, professional, friendly. Even Richard bowed to his nephew, pledged loyalty, explained that he was taking over the boy's protection, for his own safety, of course. Then Richard arrested Earl Rivers and Richard Grey. Took them away. They'd be executed within weeks. But young Edward didn't know that yet. The boy king protested. He cried. He said his uncle and half-brother had done nothing wrong. But what's a 12-year-old going to do against armed men? Richard smiled and said not to worry. Everything was fine. They'd continue to London together. To the coronation, to the throne. Except they weren't going to the throne. They were going to the Tower. The Tower of London? Residence or prison? Here's something modern people don't understand about the Tower of London. It wasn't just a dungeon. It was a royal palace. Kings stayed there before coronations. It was tradition, luxury apartments, gardens, servants. Young Edward would have been told this was normal. And it was sort of. Edward V entered the Tower of London on May 19th, 1483. He was told his coronation was scheduled for June 22nd. 1 month away. Just wait here. In comfort, while the preparations are made, the apartments were lavish. Tapestries on the walls, feather beds. Musicians, servants, Edward had his own attendants, his own rooms. He could see the Thames from his window. He was still king, still planning his coronation robes, still signing documents. But he was also behind walls, thick walls with guards. Guards loyal to Uncle Richard. 2 weeks later, his 9-year-old brother, Richard, Duke of York, joined him. For company, they said, so the king wouldn't be lonely. But here's the thing. Their mother, Elizabeth Woodville, had fled to sanctuary in Westminster Abbey. The moment Richard seized power, she'd taken her daughters and young Richard with her. She knew. Mothers always know. Richard of Gloucester had to negotiate with the church to get the boy. He promised the child would be safe. Just going to play with his brother. Just keeping the king company until the coronation. Elizabeth gave up her son. What choice did she have? Men with swords were making promises. So now there were 2 boys in the Tower. Edward, 12. Richard, 9. Brothers, playing chess, reading, waiting for a coronation that would make Edward king and Richard a prince. Neither of them knew they'd never leave. The disappearance. At first, people saw the boys regularly. They played in the Tower gardens. Servants attended them. Doctors checked on them. They were visible, alive, waiting. But slowly, things changed. Fewer servants, fewer visitors. The boys were moved from the royal apartments to the inner rooms. Smaller, darker. The windows were barred. Not for decoration, for security, they said. By mid-June, sightings became rare. A servant might glimpse them at a window. A guard might hear them talking, but the public access stopped. And then Richard of Gloucester made his move. On June 22nd, the day Edward was supposed to be crowned king, Richard of Gloucester was crowned King Richard III instead. How simple! Richard declared his brother Edward IV's marriage invalid, which meant Edward's children were illegitimate. Bastards. Not royal. Not in line for the throne. It was absurd. Everyone knew it. But Richard had the army. He had the lords. He had the power. And he had 2 boys locked in a tower who couldn't argue. England now had a new king, and 2 princes nobody talked about anymore. The last confirmed sighting of Edward and Richard alive was in July, 1483. A servant saw them shooting arrows in the garden. Then they were moved deeper into the tower. Into the White Tower, into rooms where no one casual could see them. And then ... silence. No more sightings, no more reports, no official announcement of their deaths. They simply stopped existing in the public record. By autumn, rumors spread. The princes are dead, murdered, smothered in their sleep by these Iden. Some said they saw workers carrying suspicious bundles at night. Others claimed the boy's physician wept openly, knowing what had happened. But Richard III said nothing. He never mentioned his nephews again. Not once. Not to explain their absence. Not to produce them alive as proof. Against rumors, nothing. 2 boys walked into the Tower of London in May 1483. By September, they'd vanished, and nobody in power seemed to care. Life in the shrinking room. Let's talk about what those final months might have felt like, because this is where the story gets truly haunting. Imagine you're Edward. You're 12 years old. You're supposed to be king. You've been told your whole life that you're destined to rule England. Your father was king. Your grandfather was king. This is your birthright. And now you're in a room. A nice room, sure. But still a room. And every day, fewer people come to see you. Every day, your uncle's men tell you to wait just a little longer. Your little brother asks questions. When is the coronation? When can we see Mother? Why can't we go outside anymore? And you don't have answers. Because you're 12, you don't understand politics or power or the fact that your own blood is deciding whether you're more valuable, alive, or dead. Maybe you hear things, rumors from servants who still attend you. Your uncle crowned himself. Your mother's family is being arrested. People are calling you a bastard, and slowly the truth crawls into your chest like cold water. Nobody's coming. The coronation isn't happening. This room is getting smaller every day. Your brother is 9. He still thinks this is temporary. He plays with his toy soldiers. He asks when you'll be king, and can he be a duke? You don't tell him what you're starting to suspect. That you're not prisoners waiting for release. You're problems waiting to be solved. The servants come less often. The food gets simpler. The rooms get darker because nobody's replacing the candles as frequently. The bars on the windows aren't to keep people out. They're to keep you in. And then one night, maybe you hear footsteps. Heavy boots. Men's voices. The door opens, and you realize, in that final moment, that your uncle found his answer. We don't know how they died. Smothered with pillows, probably. Quick, quiet, professional. 2 boys in their sleep. No screaming, no fighting, just silence. And in the morning, the room was empty. TBD, the body's gone. Lighter princes had never existed at all. The bones under the stairs. Fast forward 191 years. It's 1674. Charles II is king. The Tower of London is being renovated. Workers are demolishing a staircase in the White Tower. And they find something. A wooden box. Hidden in the wall. About 10 feet down. Inside, bones. To skeletons. Small. Children. Tangled together. Like they'd been thrown in hastily. No coffins. No ceremony. Just bones in a box under stairs where people walked for 2 centuries. The workers reported it. Charles II, a romantic, decided these must be the lost princes. He ordered them buried in Westminster Abbey in a marble urn designed by Christopher Wren. A proper royal burial. Finally, 2 centuries late. But here's the problem. Nobody did a proper analysis. Nobody measured. Nobody recorded details. The bones just went from a box to a tomb. In 1933, experts examined the bones briefly. They concluded 2 children, probably boys, probably the right age for the princes in 1483. One around 12, one around 9. Both showed evidence of possible smothering or suffocation. But the examination was limited, and in 1933, forensic science was primitive. DNA testing didn't exist, and after the examination, the bones were sealed back in the tomb, where they remain today. Westminster Abbey refuses to allow further testing. The bones are buried. They're consecrated. They're staying put. If it looks like a murder and smells like a murder and has been hidden under a staircase for 200 years, it's probably a murder. T suspects, so who killed the princes in the tower? Let's go through the list. Richard III. The obvious choice. The uncle who seized power, declared the boys illegitimate, took the throne, and conveniently never mentioned his nephews again. Motive? Clear. As long as the boys lived, his crown was threatened. Any rebellion could rally around the true King Edward V. Dead boys can't lead rebellions. Opportunity, total. He controlled the tower. He controlled the guards. He could order their deaths with a nod. Evidence. The boys vanished on his watch. He never produced them to prove they were alive. After AD8, his successor, Henry VII, accused him of the murders. But here's the thing. Richard never admitted it. His defenders argue he wouldn't have been stupid enough to murder 2 children and leave himself as the obvious suspect. That's bad PR. Even in 1483, Henry VII. Wait, what? Henry VII didn't even take the throne until 1485, 2 years after the boys vanished. But think about it. Henry defeated Richard at the Battle of Bosworth Field. He married the prince's sister, Elizabeth of York, to unite the warring houses. His claim to the throne was shaky at best, and if the princes were still alive somewhere, hidden, Henry had a problem. Real heirs with better claims than him. So maybe Richard locked them up, but didn't kill them. And maybe Henry after he won, quietly finished the job. It's possible. We know Henry executed several pretenders who claimed to be the lost princes, men who said they escaped the tower. Henry killed them all, brutally, publicly. Was he eliminating frauds? Or eliminating evidence? Henry Stafford, Duke of Buckingham, Richard's most powerful ally, the man who helped him seize power, but also an ambitious man with his own weak claim to the throne. Some historians think Buckingham murdered the princes without Richard's knowledge, maybe hoping to frame Richard, maybe hoping to destabilize the kingdom enough for his own power grab. Evidence: Buckingham rebelled against Richard in October 1483, just months after the princes vanished. Why? Maybe guilt. Maybe anger that Richard didn't reward him enough. Or maybe Buckingham murdered the boys, expected gratitude, and got horror instead. Buckingham was executed for his rebellion. He never confessed to anything, but dying men sometimes take secrets with them. The verdict: we don't know. The frustrating truth: we'll probably never know. The bones can't be tested. The contemporary records are silent or propaganda. Everyone involved is 500 years dead. Richard III is the obvious suspect. The timeline works. The motive works. And his reputation never recovered. But obvious doesn't mean certain. And history is full of obvious suspects who were innocent. What we know for sure: 2 boys entered the tower in 1483. 2 boys vanished. Somebody made them disappear. And whoever it was got away with it. Why? We're still haunted. It's been 540 years. Why do we still care about 2 medieval princes? Because they were children. Because the story is so perfectly, horribly simple. 2 boys in a room, waiting for adults to decide their fate. 2 brothers who probably didn't understand why the world stopped caring. This isn't a battlefield death. It's not glorious. It's not even fast. It's slow political murder. It's the moment you realize your family is willing to kill you for a crown. Every year, thousands of tourists visit the Tower of London. They take selfies in the White Tower. They walk past the windows where 2 princes might have looked out, hoping for rescue that never came. There's even a plaque, the Prince's Chamber, like it's a museum exhibit, not a crime scene. And every year, historians debate. New theories emerge. Books are written. Did Richard do it? Was he wronged by history? Were the boys smuggled out? Did they live? But the most likely answer is the simplest. 2 boys were murdered for the crime of being born royal. Their bodies were hidden where nobody would think to look, and the man responsible took his secret to the grave. In 2012, archaeologists found Richard III's skeleton under a parking lot in Leicester. After 500 years, the villain of this story came back. And immediately, the debate was Richard guilty? Should we vilify him? Is he owed an apology? But here's what nobody talks about. Even if Richard III was innocent, even if someone else murdered those boys, it doesn't change the essential truth. 2 children vanished. Somebody killed them, and England just moved on. That's the real horror. Not the murder. The forgetting weedy months, people stopped asking about the princes. New king, new problems. Who cares about 2 boys in a tower? The tower still stands today. If you visit the Tower of London, you can stand in the White Tower. You can see the staircase where the bones were found. You can imagine 2 boys locked in a room, slowly realizing nobody's coming. There are ghost stories, of course. Guards reporting to children in white nightgowns, holding hands, walking the corridors at night, vanishing through walls, seeking something. Justice, maybe, or just acknowledgement. Arete real. Of course not. Ghosts aren't real. But if any place deserves to be haunted, it's a tower where 2 children were murdered for a crown they never got to wear. The princes in the tower aren't just a mystery. They're a warning about what power does to family, about how easily children become political problems, about how history forgets the victims and debates the murderers. Edward was 12. Richard was 9. They liked chess and archery, and probably complained about their tutors. They were brothers who probably fought and made up and shared secrets. And then powerful men decided crowns were more important than children, and 2 boys disappeared into history. The tower still stands. The Thames still flows. Tourists still come. And somewhere, under Westminster Abbey, or maybe still under the tower's stones, 2 brothers rest, unnamed on their tomb, unresolved in history, unforgotten by anyone who hears their story and feels the cold truth that the scariest monsters aren't in fairy tales, they're uncles who smile while locking doors. They're kingdoms that value power over children. They're histories that bury inconvenient truths under stairs. The princes in the tower walked into history on a spring day in 1483. They never walked out, and 540 years later, we're still asking why. Because some mysteries don't need solving. Some mysteries need remembering. 2 boys. 1 tower. Fero Justice. Welcome to medieval England, where even children aren't safe from family. The stones remember. The records stay silent, and the tower keeps its secrets, just like Uncle Richard wanted.